All right, welcome everyone. It's Chris Petri. Thanks for coming by. We're going to be painting this beautiful street scene. This is in France, and we're going to, just create the beautiful colors of this scene. We're going to show how you're going to do a very measured approach to it, a method and a technique to it. We're going to have the subject matter on our, electronic device, of course, for the entire painting. So you'll be able to reference this. So we're going to have the reference photo here on screen at all times. We're going to talk about how you're going to block out all the main large colors and shapes first, and then once we have that all completed, then we go in and we do all the minor the other details of the painting that are sort of going to make everything come together and look like a completed painting. But the focus is the first large blocks of color and the shapes of everything. Second, we go back, we add in all the windows, highlights, some of the other things that you would see that are kind of, detail orientated. We'll have, of course, my roadmap of colors on the left side. So on the left side of the screen at all times, you're going to see my color, my roadmap of how I'm mixing all my colors, what colors I'm using, and I do in the beginning of this video in just a second actually. I'll just mention to you how you can just quickly look up my very short video on colors and how I use mixing colors on my palette, which is kind of very straightforward and basic. Maybe some of you probably most of you already know the color mixing method that I use, but in any case, if you're kind of new here, first time or so, don't worry, we're going to cover all the details for you, everything A to Z, and let's get started. All right, so we just got the to look at the finished painting, and we're going to work from this photograph I found on Google. It's like a French scene, a French cityscape. Some beautiful arched bridges with some arches and wonderful. This might be a some sort of a public building maybe with some very beautiful architecture and some maybe apartment buildings. So everything is looking very beautiful, a little bit of water in the foreground. What we'll try to do is again simplify this scene so that we can just enjoy the architecture, the setting, beautiful sunny day. The sun's coming from this side of the picture across, so we're seeing the shadows over here on the right side of the buildings, and then the light's coming from the left across this way. So you could, just to keep track, you could always make a small insignia on your table or even your palette or your, let's do it on our, right up here in the very corner, let's do a round spotlight insignia, which is basically just a small spotlight looking shape and with some light rays coming out from it. So that'll just keep us focused on the light, where it's coming from, the left across this way, and then we'll work on doing the sketch right now. So we could just break this down into kind of more simple terms. It looks like the roadway and bridge is not quite halfway up from the bottom of the scene. So even if we took a ruler and just measured the height of our canvas is exactly 12 inches tall by 9 inches wide. So right away I can take my canvas like this and then just say the halfway point is 6 inches and make a small hash mark there, and from that point I know that's going to be the top of my bridge, and that kind of goes all the way across the scene. It breaks up a little bit over here where the trees are, but that's pretty much the bridge going across. Very light pencil sketch here. So I just want to kind of have that. And in essence, I think what we're going to do is just get the underlying sketch with our pencil. We can use charcoal. You can use charcoal or pencil. And I'll just start to kind of look at the scene and say this corner of this large tower is center of the canvas or the rectangle. So and we're in portrait format, so our canvas is vertical versus landscape like this. And then we can just say, well, if that outside corner there of this portion of the building over here is halfway, we'll just go, well, half of 9 is 4.5. So we just make a little hash mark there, 4.5, and we could even just use a a ruler can get us a nice vertical line, just to kind of, so we can do that. We get a vertical line there, and I think if we look at this roof area here, the eaves of this roof, it looks about 1/4 of the way down from the top. So 1/4 of the picture frame or canvas down is the bottom of these roof eaves here. So if I say 1/4 of the way, I would look at my ruler, take the ruler, 12 inches, and 3, 6, 9, 12. So 3 inches would be approximately where the eave of the roof is. 3, 6, 9, and 12. So that's 1/4 of the way there. And I see it's on a little bit of an angle this way. So it's not quite level. It's it's kind of got a little bit of some angle there, like that. And it's pretty, the width, I would say that's a pretty good, we could do that by feel and say it's about that wide, like that. We can kind of see the, okay, like this here. And then over here, the same thing. The eaves of this roof here are on an angle that way. And the width here is a little bit less than this, so I'm looking at this across here. This width over here of this face of this side of the building is a little bit less wide than this. So I'm just going to trim that down a little bit like that. A little bit less. And then we have some other features, but essentially this looks like a cube. So basically we're looking at a large cube, or could be like a tissue box, one of those cube tissue boxes. So you can look at it sort of, we could kind of see things in shapes. So that really helps. Like when I'm looking at this, I'm seeing like a tissue box, really, like over here, a cubed tissue box, and then this is kind of like a cone at the top. And then we can just, you can use rulers with this, or you can kind of feel it out with this angle here. Goes up like this. And this angle comes down like that. So you can kind of carefully look at it and see, slowly sketch it like that. And over here, again, we'll simplify things a little bit. We don't have to have every single thing exactly accurate. Let's keep ourselves. So what I'll do is I just want to get a few more points here. Maybe these are going to be the buildings over here. So I'll just make a little bit of a line there. Same thing over here. This line kind of goes right through, and these buildings over here kind of pick up over on the same angle, like that. And then up here, we have some angles this way. Like that. And then like this. So if anything, we're just going to have a fun time getting some basic shapes down and getting some paint on our canvas here. It looks like, it does look like the bridge is actually lower than halfway. So I have to bring this line down a little bit. I just noticed it now, not a big deal. We just drop our bridge across here a little bit lower, and then we drop this down, because I was thinking, I feel like I'm being squished in here for these buildings for some reason. So that's where about halfway up on this structure here is the top of these roofs. So the top of these roofs should be about here, and they go across and then they stop here, And then that comes down like that, and it comes down pretty good on a good pitch there. And then this one here, another roof. Here, another building next to that building. And we have some trees over here, like this. And then the top of the bridge. All right, so maybe one more. We'll take a look at this archway here. It's pretty much right under this section over here. We can get some lines here, just a few lines like that. We have the archway up here. Like that. And then this arch here is about here. So I'm going to take this arch of the bridge here, like this. And if everything doesn't come out perfect, you don't have to worry. You're just kind of getting some basic shapes here. The two arches for the bridge. And then there's lots of grasses and weeds and things over here. There's going to be some water down here. And again, it's an approximation. You want to get approximates here. You don't want to try to get too, bogged down with a lot of details and things that would kind of slow you down. I'll just get this over here, the shadow here. Other than that, I think it's pretty good. We just have a basic framework for our pencil sketch, which is going to help us to just get the paint on. And we're going to have fun with the colors in the paint most of all. And we'll see how everything goes. But I feel like we do have enough information. And now the next thing is we're really going to have a great time. We're going to actually cover this whole canvas with some yellow ochre to prime the canvas. So I'm going to get my largest brush here. One of my largest brushes I have for the number 10 Princeton. And I just trimmed off the end of the brushes are a little too long. I can't seem to work with them. They actually hit some of the I have like a video frame, like a metal frame that goes over the top of my table here. If you can imagine, my camera of course is up top. We're looking through the camera, the video camera down this way, and my camera is hooked up to a large metal frame on my working table here. So it's kind of tight. The frame, the metal frame, doesn't have a lot of width to it. So when I have too large a brush, I wind up hitting the frame when I'm painting, and it causes problems. So I trim down my brushes a little bit. So let's get started with our priming in just a second. I'm just going to take a quick break. All right, so we're going to start priming the canvas here. Let's do it. I wanted to mention for the colors here, just so we go over the color real quick. You could always, if you want to sort of see how I work with my colors and oils, it's pretty much the same idea in watercolor painting or in acrylic painting. You'd just be working with a basic color wheel. Pretty much you have three primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. And then from there you can mix out your secondary colors, and that's going to be orange and green with yellow and blue, orange with red and yellow. And then you can get violet with red and blue. So basically, and then from there you can kind of mix out even further and get tertiary colors. So if you type in tertiary colors, Chris Petri, tertiary colors in oil, or just paint, or just Chris Petri, tertiary colors, the video should come right up if you type that into YouTube's search bar. And then you can watch this video, and you'll just see how I kind of put out my colors. I just put the colors out just like you see here, yellow, red here on the left, and then right over here, blue. And then from there, I just sort of mix in that way where I kind of always know where my primary colors are going to be, situated. I'll always have the red, yellow, and the blue kind of in the same triangular configuration, and then I can mix from there. So that's what, that'll be easy enough to find on YouTube if you want to just brush up on how I have my colors put onto my wax paper here, palette paper. Incidentally, all my brushes, my wax paper, paints, it's all on the description box below. So I just want to make sure everyone kind of knows what materials I'm using and my art supplies. And then what I do is I will say this is the Winsor Newton paint, which is Artisan is the line, Artisan. So it's Winsor Newton, Artisan is the line, and it's water mixable oil paint. So there's no solvents. We don't have to use any paint thinners or things like that, anything flammable. Everything is just water mixable. So you can just, when you're done painting for the day, you can take a little, what I do is I just have a bucket like this. I have a bucket like this, and I put warm soapy water in it, and I just clean off my brushes that way. Warm soapy water at the end of when I'm done painting for the day, and that cleans off my brushes, and that's all you need. And then I just use a little bit of water, clean water in a water container, just to use a little, to, clean off the brushes as I'm working with the colors and the paints. And we have to clean off our brush time to time, so when I clean off my brush, I rinse it off in that water, clean fresh water in a water container, and then I just dry it off on paper towels. So I have a whole roll of paper towels next to me as I work to take the water off the brush once I'm done rinsing off the brush in the water container. And then at the end of the day, again, it's very simple. Soapy water, warm soapy water, you can clean all your brushes off, and then you're ready to go for the next painting in a week or whenever you paint the next day. So let's keep going. I realize sometimes you might be new here. This is your first time joining along, and welcome along. Thanks for stopping by and painting with me and all of us here. So the thing I mentioned is, for those of you that might have been painting along with us now for months or so, always there's going to be some new people coming in. So that's why I just try to cover a little bit of, the prep work that we're going to do before we start painting, or even before we even start working. We need to kind of have some basics that we have. So you have the color wheel that kind of gives you your guide to how you set up your colors on your palette. I use the wax paper. You just peel off, it comes in a sheet. I have that down below, and again in the description box, all my art supplies. And basically you can pick some brushes that you like, but what we're going to do is get a very, very extremely thin layer of yellow ochre on our canvas. And this is what's really fun about this, is it's just a damp brush. All you need is a damp brush, and you just start covering your canvas with that yellow ochre. And you go really thin. Try to go as thin as you can, and we'll just cover the whole canvas. We see that there are different colors here. There's some really light colors, like white almost, and then there's blues and different things, but that doesn't matter. We're covering the whole canvas with this warm glow underneath the colors that we're going to put on top of it, and that's going to give us a real beautiful effect. And if you do see some lighter areas, like in the sky, you could go lighter. You could take some paper towel and blot up, or kind of lighten up on some areas if you want. I would try not to disturb the pencil lines too much, though, if you're going to lift up some areas. Or you can just go with lighter application of your yellow ochre in certain areas that you think are going to be lighter. But you have a fun time with this when you're putting on your yellow ochre. Cover the canvas nice and evenly. You can rinse off your brush in some water, dry off a little bit of the excess water, but then you still have a damp brush here. And then you can continue on and get yourself some good yellow ochre, thin, super thin layer of some undertone. You could even do this a day ahead or something like that, or two, and work on it when it's dry, the yellow ochre, or you can mix it like this right before you paint. And when you mix it, when you do it this way, like we're doing right now, you will notice that you have kind of like a nice, enjoyable mixing effect that you can sort of, you can blend some colors with the yellow ochre. So if you have this underlayer, underglazing of the yellow, you can almost use it as like a medium in a sense, where you already have something down on your canvas. Sort of like many of you probably remember when Bob, the Bob Ross method. He used to cover the whole canvas, and William Alexander and Lynn Petard. These were some of the people I used to watch when I was very young, like a young teenager. I used to really enjoy that, watching that with my brother. We used to watch those episodes all the time on public television in the New York, New Jersey area where we live. and grew up. And they used to cover their canvas with liquid white, they called it. And it was like a white, thin glazing of white over the whole entire canvas before they started painting. And then they would paint over the top of that, and it would give them like a nice coat of kind of like smooth blending application of paint. So it would just make everything go smoothly for them when they would paint. Okay, so you've seen I've kind of covered the whole canvas, and not, every single place. You can kind of see you could do it a little more strategically if you want. I don't know if I kind of try to do it a little bit strategically. Like over here, I know there's some darks there, so I could go a little darker with the yellow ochre here. That wouldn't be a problem. And then over here too, these roofs are kind of darker. I could have gone darker there with a little more yellow ochre, but you kind of see how I did that, and it's already drying. This first glazing, but it's got a little bit of wetness to it still, and it'll have that for probably a while now, for the next couple hours as we work. So let's do our next glazing, where we're going to start. We'll work in the sky first. It's always good if we can get our sky in first. That kind of sets the tone for the rest of the painting. So if we get our sky in there and it looks good, I think it's going to help us. All right, so let me do this. Let me take a quick break. So I'll just set down my brush here, and we'll come right back, and we'll mix up some sky glazing, some sky color, and we'll start working on that. All right, so we're going to pick up now and start the sky glazing. I see some purple in there, some blue, a little bit of red, a little bit of yellow ochre. So yellow ochre we already have on there. It's kind of a light sky, so I'm going to start out with white here. Some blue, French ultramarine blue, and cerulean blue. And some alizarin crimson maybe, for a little bit of that purplish. And I'm gonna tend not to overmix it too much. I mean, it's quite light. So as long as I have those colors mixing that I see in there, maybe there's a little bit of grayish color, so maybe I could take some burnt umber in there with some white, some blue, some red. More blue. That might be good. And again, the same principle here is we'll go thinner. So I'll get plenty of white. We go thinner to start with. Okay, and I see a few chimneys here. I'll keep it thinner here where those chimneys are. Maybe a little bit of cerulean. So let's just have fun, get some paint on the canvas here. Sometimes it's better just to go for it and have some fun versus stressing over things and second guessing all the day long. We looked at the colors, we saw the colors we need. We got those out onto the canvas right now. I'll need some more white. So I will get some more white paint, squeeze that on the would say, you know, if a good idea is, especially if you're just starting out. Now, if you have some experience, well, then you're ahead of the game a little bit. You might be thinking you have your own kind of idea of your approach of how you're going to do this, and you're working along with me, and you have some other experience, and you know that's fine. I'm more or less only been painting oils probably a couple years, and I used to paint oils when I was younger, in my teens. But in any case, my idea is, you know, if you have knowledge, use your knowledge, mix it with mine, and see what you come up with. And if you're brand new at this, well, then you're following along what I'm doing more or less, and then you're also too being creative and thinking on the fly, learning new things. You'll probably come up with some new ideas yourself as you go, no doubt. And then from there, I tend to like Viridian or Phthalo green in my sky, so I will put a touch of that here. And since I have a little bit in the sky, I will need to put some of this too in the I'll need to put some of that green in the rest of the painting here and there. It doesn't have to be a lot, but some of that same phthalo green will need to go into the rest of the painting. So it's kind of like you want to have all your colors that you're using in your painting, you want to have them all throughout your entire painting, even if it's just a little bit. Like if you want to add some, like we're doing here, the phthalo green, just a tiny bit of it. It's very strong phthalo green. So if you do want to use some of that, and I do like to use that in the sky, well then great. We just want to make sure that we just need to add it a little bit here and there, just a little spot of it in a few different locations. Will kind of make sure it'll make the whole painting harmonize together, the colors. That's the key. Sometimes you'll see a painting that may have one color one place and then it's no other place in the painting, and it sort of looks out of place, and that's what happens when we don't harmonize our colors. So that's what we're looking to do. Alright, so I'm happy with the sky here. Maybe we need a little more color, some more blue in there. So I'll put some of that French ultramarine, and again it's really nice. We're mixing the paint that we have. So we've gone with a pretty thick, you know, glazing of paint up here on this portion of the sky, and you can X stroke to blend things. Alright, so I'll rinse off my brush well. Now I'll try to go and start working into, I'll use a smaller brush now. This is the largest brush we have, really, for the most part. And that we did the whole glazing with yellow ochre, and then we did the sky with this. Now we're going to shift to a smaller brush because we have mostly smaller sections now we're going to be working. So I will, you know, shift down to a 4, number 4. And I think this is a filbert. And a flat brush would work fine too. I think I'll start out here. We'll have that blue, French ultramarine blue, maybe a little bit of yellow ochre in that, sort of a bluish green, pretty dark in some spots, and maybe let's try it out. And always have some paper towels on hand just in case we lean into our paint. But what I'll do is, since I'm on a working board, I can rest my hand over here on the working board and then strategically put my brush, or I can just work above like this. And that's probably the classic way to work oil painting, is to just have your hand with your brush above your working surface. Or a lot of times oil painters will work on easels where the board is straight in front of them on a vertical position. So I'm doing this a little differently because we're on video here. So I'm working on a table, but most people that paint oil, they'll have their canvas on an easel and they'll be painting with the board again vertical. So like straight opposite of this, the canvas would be like this, straight like this, and then they would be painting like this on the vertical canvas that's straight up like this, almost as if they're painting on like a wall. So the canvas would be set up like it's fastened to a wall, and then they're using their brush like this, and they're painting on the canvas this way. We're just doing it the opposite. We're painting on it this way, but you could certainly set up your canvas any way you like. So we're just going to be working our blue here for the roof. And let's just block in these colors. We can always later do a little bit of touch-ups. And then I think I'll work right down into here with those same colors. I just noticed it's a little more purple. So I'll take some red and some blue. And get some purple looking with some yellow. So I'll kind of mix and blend this in. I might need a little bit of, so I'm sort of mixing a grayish color there. And we're just working our colors around. So you see how I just mix some colors here and there, get some approximates. I'm going to leave some of that yellow ochre showing through. I'm definitely going to make this darker under here. There'll be a shadow under there, and it is on a little bit of an angle this way. So I'll let that kind of set up for a while, let that glazing kind of dry a little bit over here. And I think I'll probably start working in some of the roof colors. Yellow ochre, red, burnt umber. Okay, there we go. And we can block in some of the details like the chimneys a little bit later. You can simplify your painting if you want to. You don't have to paint in all the details. You can kind of, you can lighten this up a little bit. Maybe it's a little bit lighter here in the sunlight. And the same thing over here, more roof. Burnt umber, cadmium red, a little alizarin crimson. Okay, so let's realize that there's some green trees over here, so we can leave this area open for right now. We could even start working in some greens there, but I think we'll wait till we mix some of the other greens that we have for down here in this section in the bottom of the painting. So I'll wait for that part, and then we can also work in some darks here. I see. So now I can take some French ultramarine blue, mix it in there with the we have some of those darks that are up top here. I'll put a little bit of dark under the edge of the eaves of the roof there. There's a couple windows there. And we can some darks under there and under here, under these eaves here. And again, we're going to try to just maybe make it like sort of a spotty looking painting where we're kind of getting in all kinds of spots of colors, you know, dabs of colors here and there. And then as we keep working everything, we can fine tune it. So since we're here mixing this color, which is sort of a brownish red, we notice up here this roof is pretty much the same color, maybe a little more in shadow. Might have a little like green in it. I'll put a little bit of that green up here. And that's too dark, so I'll rinse off my brush. I had too much dark paint on my brush at this point, so I rinse off my brush, dry off my brush on a paper towel, and then go back in and get some of this here and sort of thin that out a little bit. So I just take that dark that I have and thin it out on the canvas like this and get the again, the idea is thin glazings first when you're painting, and then you can go over with darker glazings of paint, and you can make those glazings lighter or darker if you want as you're painting. Once you're, when you're going over with, usually you're going over with thicker paint when you're doing your glazings on top of other glazings. So you always think, for the most part you're doing thin glazings first, and then you go with thicker paint over top of those. And then here we have kind of a grayish purple, yellow ochre. I'll just kind of mix up with like a purplish color I see here. And this is in shadow. The sunlight's coming across the painting this way, and this wall here on this building is actually in shadow. And there might be certain areas that are catching some sunlight, so we might see that in a little while. But again, I'm blocking in what I'm seeing here. And if it looks like certain areas are really detailed with lots of different shapes and different colors and lights, and you can just sort of not worry about it and just simplify the area. So I'll just leave this simplified like this with this purplish color, and we know that You can make some windows there. And we know that a little bit down from this section here, we have another roof. So this roof here is about, the bottom of this roof is about halfway here. So now we know we have a roof here. That's going to go up like this. And it's a little bit lighter, so I'm going to add a little bit of red. Like this, see if I can get a little bit of a lighter touch of white in there. A little bit of red. A little bit of that green, maybe. Neutralize it a little bit. And then we'll go with a little bit of that darker mix underneath here. Under the eaves of the roof there. And the same thing here. We want to have that dark underneath the eaves of the roof. French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, like that. Alright, I hope we're having fun here. Maybe some of that dark here. We're going to do a couple windows, some arched windows, like this here. And that's fine if you do some areas that are kind of like soft looking, like where you don't have to really make everything completely. We might put some trees. There might be a terrace up here where there's some trees and plantings and things where this part of the building is up here. And then, so you can kind of see that. There looks like there are some trees and plantings and things up here. So that's probably a terrace up here where people come out and they have dinner and breakfast and lunch and enjoy the weather and the sunlight on their terraces. And let's see, what else do we have here? So we have our roof in here. And then we have this wall here. So this is sort of, I could rinse off my brush, dry off the water. So now I just have a damp brush. And then we can use some of the yellow ochre, maybe a touch of that green there. And since I'm doing a little bit of the green there, let me add some green here and there. And again, that's just the idea of add some of that green, just very minimally, but a little bit here and there. And that's going to really help. So that's why I'll just take the time out now. Take a little bit of that phthalo green. Just add a little bit of it here and there. Rinse off the brush. And I'll go back in with some of that yellow ochre, maybe a little bit of the white, just to sort of get some of that. And of course I'm going to leave some of the yellow ochre showing through. This is going to be the wall, the bridge. This is the bridge across here, like that. So I'm just trying to be aware of that. And we're still in great shape here. I will need some more phthalo green. So let's take another break quickly. I'll put out some more phthalo green because, like I said, since I did start to put it up in the sky, I'm going to use that phthalo green sprinkled in here and there with all of our paint mixes that we're mixing as we're going. But I don't want to keep mixing too many different colors. I think we're kind of going at a good pace here. You can kind of see how I'm just mixing things, and now I'm pretty much have everything. The mixes are pretty good. I have everything. I think this is about all I'm going to mix really as far as mixing colors. I think I'll just have to re-mix some more colors that we've already created. I just have to mix more because, you know, obviously I run out, and then I need to just mix a little more of the same colors. So we'll just keep working that idea of pretty much now, after we're complete with the sky and some of the buildings here and rooftops, on the top of the painting, we're pretty much good with our mixes. Only thing we will have to add is probably just a little bit of the greens for the foliage in the painting, the trees over here on the right, some of the plants and bushes and things along the water down here, and I think that's it. And other than that, I think we really do have mostly everything handled really well. So it's just a matter of now pushing through and taking our time and just getting the rest of the painting done. And again, we're not looking for perfection any one place in the painting. We're just looking to block in some colors. And once we're done blocking in all the main colors in this painting, then you can go back in and do some fine tuning with a finer brush and maybe do a few more details. But I think the best way to always go is try to just, even though it looks a little funny, I know it does, you're looking at this and I'm looking at it too and thinking the same thing. It looks kind of like primitive and blocky looking, but that's just the way art is. When you're kind of in the halfway through your painting mode or process, it doesn't look that finished looking, and it doesn't always look, let's say, very pleasant looking. But trust me, as we work through the rest of the painting and just keep the same thought in there, we're just trying to block in the main colors and shapes. And then once we're done doing that, then you'll see we'll go in and do a couple little minor details. We might put in the chimneys. We'll put in, some of the grass weeds and things like that, and maybe add a couple touches of light here and there with some white paint to give it that real, like, nice sunlit feeling. But we're on our way to getting there. We just have to persevere and, keep working. And we'll save the lights for last, so you can kind of see the walls here. On some of these walls and the chimneys and some of the areas of the roofs, you will see splashes of kind of like sunlight. So we will get that in here. We just have to sort of keep working the darker colors first, and we'll save those lights for last. All right, we'll be right back. All right, so we're going to keep continuing on here. Let's get some of the light of this roof over here in light. So the sunlight is striking this side of the roof. And we'll maybe, we're going to get some of the blue. I have to use some blue in there because this is blue. I think I'd want to have some lighter, maybe something like that. I'll rinse off my brush, dry off a little bit of the water off the brush, and then maybe I just use this and blend it in. And I'll kind of use the underpainting of the yellow ochre to, like, give it that light feeling. So that is what's good about having that underpainting of the yellow ochre. It's kind of giving us a harmony to the painting overall with that kind of yellowish golden glow. And let's try to use it. Let's try to use the yellow ochre if we can. And like in this case, doing the just a lighter wash of color like that. And then we can take some of that dark here and some blue. Let's see if we can get some shadowing under here. And of course we can go back toward the end of the painting once we have all of everything blocked in, the major colors, the major shapes blocked in, then we can come in and add some details to the shadowing. Maybe we'll add a little darker touch here and there like it is in this painting here. So, we have the task. The first task is to just get the basic blocking out of all of the shapes in this composition. And then once we're done with that, then we can go in and just do, more details if we want. Add a little more shadowing here and there. Add a little bit of touches of light, like some white, yellow ochre and white paint. I'll start getting these shadows in over here. So I'm going to do that. Up here, I'm going to try to get these shadows in. And I'll try to mix it up a little bit. Get some yellow ochre. We'll come over here, get some of that going. So I want to sort of change up maybe a little bit of blue, cerulean blue. So I'm keeping track of my colors here as much as I can. Like this. And once everything again is once the major portions of this are blocked in, then you have more freedom. You can do more details to it. The key though is try to do less details from the beginning. Try to get just like a crude first coverage of everything. And even though it looks odd or even unpleasant, that's what you have to fight through as an oil painter. You have to think to yourself, now if you haven't done this and you've just started for the first time, or it's your first time here, welcome again. If it's your first time painting in oils, have fun with this. Just, you're in the beginning, you're just having fun mixing the colors and putting down paints, and that's fine. And if you've been painting a little bit, maybe, half a year of oil painting or so, then you kind of just realize, if you've done this a number of times, you realize, okay, I understand that the painting's not going to look that pleasant looking and pleasing looking in the beginning, because I'm just crudely getting down the blocking of all the information like this, like we're doing. See, we know there's a lot of stuff where we don't have here. We don't have the chimneys. We don't have some of the finer little details of lines. We're missing the lights still. We don't have some of those really bright lights. We'll get those in later, but that's why I say it doesn't look like a finished painting or a pleasant looking painting in the beginning, but you still work on your darks first. So we just get in all of our darks, except for the sky. The sky is pretty light, and that we did first, but that's fine. But everything else, we're pretty much getting in the darker sections of everything, the darker passages, the shadowy sections, and the darker tones. You can blend in some things. Okay. A little bit of a darker. So you can do a little bit of a darker bit of highlights. And you could go in and do some details now. Maybe that's just kind of a fun thing to do, just to get a few in there maybe. Start to say, all right, well, I will go in and do a few details like this. And then that might just give you that encouragement as you're doing your painting, if you put in a few of those really dark darks or details that you're going to work on. That will actually start to give you the encouragement, I guess, in a sense, when you're looking at your painting, saying, okay, if you add a few details like that, you start to see it, how it's starting to come together a little bit. then at this point you could start to use a dowel or something to brace your hand. I'm trying to work from the edge of my painting over here. Alright, so let's keep working here. Do we have any more darks we could do? There might be a really nice dark here. And that really super dark I'm creating is just the burnt umber and raw cyan, burnt umber and French ultramarine blue. And I rinse the brush off. And if something happens, you can always scrape off a little bit of paint. You can use a palette knife if you have a little bit. You maybe added something a little bit too dark to paint. You could just lift it off like that. You could just scrape off the paint, and we'll come back and touch that up later. Alright, so I'm thinking this is looking pretty good here. I think I'll work a little bit more over here maybe. Maybe we'll put some windows in here. And I'll go with a smaller brush. So instead of doing some more smaller details, I'll leave some of these smaller details till later. And I'll just maybe do a couple bits there just to get that a little better. Maybe these are arches. I'll make these arches here. So I'll just bring those out a little more. These were looking like Gothic arches, but I think we'll just make them like that. All right, so we're going to keep working. Let's get the bridge now. Let's do some of the grayish colors here in the bridge. So we'll take some white, some of the brown and blue, maybe some of the red, a little bit of that green, phthalo green, and we'll just put that in here. A little bit of yellow ochre. That's looking kind of pretty good there. I think I will get some more of that phthalo green though. I said I was going to put some more out on the palette. Let me do that. And we are having a fun time at this. So I'll get a little bit of that phthalo green, just a tiny bit of it, and put a little bit into the this section over here. We'll pick up some of that blue sky color. And then we'll go back in with some darker. So we just want to Maybe some burnt umber here. Gray it up a little bit. And again, we're not trying to do like a perfect oil painting. Our process is we're having fun, enjoying learning the methods and processes and techniques of oil painting. So and we're having fun at the same time. That's the main thing, having a good time, enjoying it, realizing we'll just get better and better. Every time we do another painting, we're a little bit better every time. And that's really how it is. So there's no worries about, am I going to get better? You will always get better as each painting goes. You'll learn something new each painting, or a few things each painting. And you'll just keep building on one success after another until eventually you'll have a lot easier time, a lot more fun even than you have now. You'll have more fun even as you learn more about the medium. And again, let's get some of those darks in here. We could come down here maybe. Burnt umber and French ultramarine blue and some alizarin crimson. And we're just going to maybe get some of these darks in here. For the arch under the bridge. And then we can do some sharper lines like this, so we're kind of bringing in the grass. So we're just kind of keeping ourselves aware. Let's make some shapes like grass and weeds, things coming up into the arched area here, which is the underside of the bridge. And then over here too we have a really dark there. Darkest over here. And the same thing. Let's make take my brush and I kind of move my brush back and forth in a wiggling kind of fashion. And that's when you can get those sharper lines for the grasses and things. A little bit of white and blue over here on this side. A little bit lighter there. Touch more light. Okay. Same here, it's a little bit lighter. I would say my brush strokes, I'm going to try to keep my brush strokes and try to keep them flowing the same way the arches, like that. And I'll just keep that dark in there. And then there's some shadows here. Let's keep the darks for now here. I'll rinse off my brush. And then let's one more time rinse off the brush again. I might empty my water at this point. It's getting pretty murky looking like that. And I'll start out with some more fresh water. And what I'm going to try to do is just get this over here, like this. I think I'll start. Let's make some yellow ochre here and phthalo green maybe. So here I'm just going to get a little bit, take artist liberty and just do a little bit something different than maybe I'm seeing in the painting, like this here. Yellow ochre, phthalo green, maybe a touch of burnt umber. Over here to make it a little darker, so a little bit of burnt umber on that green on this side. So there's some shadowy green over here with a little bit of blue, maybe too. Make a little bit of a bluer green, like a cooler green over here. Just like that. I think I'll leave that as is. Some more of that green over here, maybe a little bit lighter. So we can just kind of have a good time here, mixing up some greens, phthalo green mixed in with our yellow ochre, add a little bit of burnt umber in there, maybe a little bit of blue for your shadowy greens like that. Over here on the right side, then you have a little bit of and we just come right across. And it might be a little bit darker than what we're seeing here in the painting, the greens that we're putting across here, but I think that's all right. I think most of these are in shadow, maybe some of them are, we could add some highlights maybe. But I just wanted to get this part kind of completed here. And there's some water going through the underside here. I'll rinse off my brush. Rinse off the brush, dry off some of the okay, so we're just gonna this is still dark under here, so this is still plenty dark up here. And then as we go here, we do start to see a little bit of blue, sky color almost, so we will put that in. Or maybe we won't, we'll see how it goes, but I think we're already getting a pretty good feel for what we're looking for here. We have some water now that has to go in. The water's going to pick up the colors of the sky, so we're going to go back into our sky washes here. Like this. Okay, so we will and again our sky washes, a little bit of cerulean blue, a little bit of French ultramarine blue, a little bit of white, touch of phthalo green too, and then we have our water here. Okay, and then with our water, we can maybe put in a little more of the greens. We rinse off our brush one more time. And then maybe we have something like this. some greens. Here, a little bit of the darker greens over on this side over here. A little bit of blue in there. Yellow ochre, blue. Okay, we can put a little bit of that there. Rinse off the brush. Dry off the brush. Yellow ochre. A little bit of phthalo green. A little bit there. I just had some down here at the bottom of the painting. And some more of the, we'll need some more French ultramarine blue. So as you need more color, we just get that out on the palette, and then we look around. We have to find our yellow ochre. Phthalo green, we might be good on that. Let's see now. And we want it to go with a little more of that dark French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, touch of the alizarin crimson. And I just like to sharpen up this here a little bit. And then for some reason you think we can always reshape some portions of your painting. I notice my rooftop up here looks a little bit like I probably need to reshape that a little bit. I'm going to see, maybe not. All right, so now we can start going in with some more details. Maybe I darken that up a touch. Rinse off my brush, dry off. Go with some of this green over here. We said we might put some greens, phthalo green and yellow ochre. More yellow ochre like that. Burnt umber maybe. Have a little bit of greens up on the terraces up here. Just a little bit of all right, now I will start to think about the details so we can kind of see. We could put some finer details. Maybe we'll use a smaller round brush like this to get some more details maybe. But you can kind of see we've blocked in pretty much everything. All the main colors and architecture of the whole scene is pretty much blocked in. Now we can just add in some of these fine details, like we're seeing the some of the windows over here and windows here. Same thing here, windows and doors over here. We could add in some, maybe a couple chimneys. There's a couple of chimneys on the very, very top of this building here, on the rooftop area. And then maybe a little bit of detail on the shores over here, where the bridge is in the river. So there's a river under here, and it's flowing through, and we'll kind of do some shadowing too. I see some shadowing under here and across here. So we'll take a quick break now, just another quick break to, this is the step that we always kind of stick to, taking some breaks here and there as we're working through the painting, and also when you kind of get all of your major areas of your painting blocked in like we have right now, then we, before our break, or even when we're coming back from our break, if we take a 5 or 10 minute rest, we come back, then we start looking and saying, all right, maybe I'll start on this side of the painting over here and just look at the details and maybe get a couple of these details over here and then work over to the next area and sort of do that. Add some details, maybe not everything we're seeing, but get a few here and there in. And then once we do one complete work around the whole painting of some details, then we can go back again and say, oh, do I need anything else? Should I add any other details? Or maybe I should leave it as it is. So that's where you kind of sparingly add your details as you go. And if you need to go back in again, after we'll do this next round of going through the painting with some more finer details, then once you're done with that, you'll just ask yourself the question, do I think it needs some more details? And you can always let it go a day or two and then come back and look at your painting and say, oh yeah, I think it needs a little more details, or no, I think it looks fine. It just looks good the way it is. So that's your judgment. You're the artist. You're going to figure that out. But again, a good game plan is always start out with just the major sections of your painting, block those in, and then we'll go in and we'll start adding some more of the details. Okay, so I'll come right back in a second. All right, we are going to get some details in now. Let's start off here with the flat brush. I think maybe we'll start out over here on the left-hand side. And I might just change up from what I see there. Maybe I'll just go with a couple kind of windows like this here. Let's do a couple that. Maybe a little bit of dark in that mix there. That. I've got a door there, maybe. Maybe we'll do an arch door. And maybe another couple windows here. Okay, so now we have some darker darks there. Maybe a couple of darks under here, right under the very underside of the tops of the windows. Even a little bit of dark there along this side, maybe. And let's see what else we have. Yeah, we could do some more windows over here. So I'll add just a touch of water and get that dark going there. Burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of alizarin crimson. Okay, there we go. A couple more windows here. And, we're just working some ideas here. Windows, maybe 3 across here. Then there's a bit of a separation between these two buildings here. So we know we're going to go with a little bit of a lighter bit of paint here, glazing, and then the same over here. So we will add in those lights last. And I'll put those windows in a little bit more French ultramarine blue. going to be like this. These windows seem to be a little bit taller, more elongated, like this. So I'll just... Kind of nice to have a little change in the window size and look of the windows. We have many square type windows here. And we could add some arch tops to any of these windows if we wanted to make them look a little different. But I think these look pretty good. Okay, now, again, my idea was just to get the block everything in, and now just kind of work on the details, and then we can keep doing that now as we go. So I think I will maybe switch brushes to a round brush. So I'll use this round brush here, number 2 brush. And I might make these maybe add a little bit of red to that, make it a purpley blue. I might use a dowel here just to steady my hand up here. I'll try to get this chimney up here. And then there's another chimney over here, very dark, so I'll go with French ultramarine blue. Over here, French ultramarine blue and burnt umber. Really make that very, very dark. Like that. Okay. Okay, now little bits of detail sometimes. More paper towel. Okay, we'll do maybe a chimney or two. Let's do, yeah, some of these chimneys here are a little darker so we can get that reddish brown chimney in there. A little bit of yellow, a little bit of yellow ochre, burnt umber, and cadmium red. And this might be over here. We have a chimney here. I could scrape off a little bit of this side of the chimney so I can make that white paint. Maybe we'll make the chimney pots a little bit more detailed now because we can, a little bit of yellow ochre, and a little bit of cadmium red, and a little bit of burnt umber. And we'll make a couple of chimney pots here. I use my dowel again. I'll slide my phone down a little bit here. And then we could just do a couple of details here. Like that. Same thing here, maybe a couple chimney pots here, maybe one here, two chimney pots there. So as we put in these little small details here and there, it definitely adds to the quality of the finished look to the painting. Some more darker darks maybe just on the shadow side of the chimneys. We'll have a little bit of light coming across the picture. Maybe we'll do a little more French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, and we'll have some shadow under here. We could change up. Maybe make it some cooler blue mixed in with that. Kind of a shadowy blue there. Sometimes it's good to have long lines. If you have long lines running through your painting, it's good to break them up a little bit. Maybe add just a little bit of different color. A little bit of green maybe. Sort of, it's just good to maybe not have one line running through the whole thing. So we break up that line a little bit. I might not put those shadows in that I see over here. I might just leave the bridge the way it is. I think that looks okay. A little bit of darks down here as well. Mix in a couple of darks. Like this. And then I think, let's see what else we can do here. There's a bit of a shadow here. Put a little bit of that blue in there too for the shadow, just a little bit of, maybe just make it a little bit, I don't want to make it that extremely dark, so I'll leave a little bit of that there. And as we see, the more okay. And again, similar colors around the painting are going to look good. A little bit of texture on some of the walls maybe, like we have over here. A little bit cooler down here. Maybe there's some shadows down here. So this is the basic idea of it. We're just, you know, have some more details as we go, and I think that looks pretty good. And you can certainly put more glazings of paint over your walls of your buildings and things like this, and the rooftops if you want it more thicker paint. I'm leaving a little bit of the texture of the canvas on here, but the choice is yours. You can always add more paint. And then I think what we'll do is we'll mix up some, I'll rinse off my brush here and dry off the brush hairs, and then I'll take some white and some yellow ochre. And then we can just take a look and see how that would look if we added some really bright light into the painting. And that looks pretty good. So we could actually start to add that really bright light. Now, the thing that happens when we do add some of this brighter light color is it can easily get tangled up with some of the other colors. So you just want to make sure you're always keeping an eye on the white light mixture you make with just the white with a little bit of yellow ochre. And if you just keep an eye on it, and if you see like something like a blue or like a warmer color might look okay mixed in there, even a cooler color would be okay. And I'm trying to really be careful with my lines here to make sure that I have them. And then I'll just go with the picture. I'm going to just keep referencing the photograph we have, like this. So the light stops here, the sunlight stops there. It's pretty much light through there. There's some more light coming into here like this, kind of like a broken edge of light, like that. That. Again, if you need to get a little bit of more steadiness there, you can just use the dowel. Alright, now we'll take some thick white again, mix it up a little bit, just a tiny bit of the yellow ochre, a little bit of tiny bit of yellow ochre in there. Then we'll see if we can... Okay, we'll just take a quick break. I think I just want to check on something quick, but yeah, we'll take a quick break and we'll come right back. Alright, so we're going to get back into business here. So I'm going to set this brush down for a second here. I'm just going to use this flat brush. I'll dry off some of the filbert brush, actually. I think it's actually a flat brush. We'll take that and get some more of that light. Yellow ochre with white with just a titanium white with a touch of yellow ochre, and then I'll use my rod here just to keep myself steady. I'll set my brush over here, and I'll just Okay. So we'll just see if we can get a couple of highlights on here. That's already, this is already getting a little bit, we're going to come over here anyway. So this wall is going to be light, bright. And it's just a matter of picking up our tiny little bit of yellow ochre. Mix it up. And at this point, it's got to be a little bit thick to paint because we did paint quite a bit of, but it might, you know, if the paint dries while you're working or if you come back the next day and do your details, then you can use thinner applications of paint. That's another thing too that's really fun about oil. If you let it dry a couple of days, like especially the water mixable oils like we're using here, the Artisan, Winsor Newton Artisan, if you let it dry, like let's say you block in all your main colors day 1, then maybe like you wait day 2 or day 3 to come back and do some of these details, you'll notice that you can get in these lighter highlights and things without a lot of difficulty and not having to use maybe, let's say, as thick a paint. But if you're working on a wet surface, like if we just painted this, you know, this is still, the yellow ochre underneath is still a little bit wet, so that means that we have to sort of take that into account as we're painting. So we have this wall, bright light. We'll put a shadow in on top. We can also do a little bit of just highlights here. Like that. And if you don't like a shape or something that comes out, lift it up with a tissue. And go back in, maybe just reshape it. Like that. And again, we're looking for a couple of highlights here and there. Doesn't hurt. Let's try that. So sunlight is bouncing off some of the roof areas, which look good, like that. Sunlight catching some things here. Of course, here, top of the bridge, we're going to have a little bit of highlights there. Again, I would avoid painting one long line of highlights. This tells the story just as well. A couple little dabs of light on the bridge there. That looks good. Could add a little bit of highlights to the trees. There might be some I don't like that highlight too much on the trees with the bright white. for some reason it doesn't look good, so I'll go back in and get some yellow ochre. And just do some yellow ochre there, like that. Try to... So if you see a kind of a color you put down and you don't like it too much, not a problem. Just go right over it with some other variation of the same thing. There might be some white, yellow ochre white down here maybe. Let's try it, see what it looks like. Pick up our white, a little bit of yellow ochre in there, maybe a little bit of highlights in the water. Probably going to look good. Feeling of some water. Sometimes we just take the brush and drag it across the canvas like that. Then we go with a larger brush that we started with. So if we take the larger brush we started with, dry off the water, and just with a damp brush, we just take that white that we put on there and just kind of drag it down a little bit like this, like that, and then we go across like this. Really carefully though, like don't be careful where you're going with this with the brush. We don't want to start going over the bushes or trees or brush and weeds and things on the water area. But if we do that, we'll definitely get a feeling of water. Like that. There might be a little bit of darker. Bit of darker paint there. Just a little bit to give us the feeling like we're seeing the shadow here in the water, the reflection of the shadow of the archway, like this. And just a little bit of that really works, you know. Doesn't have to explain the whole thing, just a little bit. A little bit of texture on the walls over here. Like that. So you can introduce a little more texture to a few areas. But this looks good. For the most part, I think we have the feeling of good light, shadows. I think we captured some good colors and the feel of the city scene here with the beautiful bridge and the archways and the buildings. I'm glad you enjoyed this. We're going to have more just like this coming up in the near future. Again, city scenes are really fun, streetscapes. I'll just maybe do a few more details. I think we could add a few more things in here. Like over here, I'll rinse my brush off here, our fine point brush. I'll rinse off the brush, dry off the water. I'll go in with some burnt umber and French ultramarine blue. And then maybe we'll just get a detail up here. I think we see a chimney up here. And this is kind of nice when you add some of these chimneys. Kind of breaks up the lines a little bit. And then over here, bit of the chimney pots over here too. We kind of left those out, or we painted over them, I think. So we just wanted to do a few more of those. And maybe a shadow under here like that. And maybe a shadow there too. Sometimes just these little details do add. And sometimes bits of just a little detail of maybe a windowsill underneath here. Like that. Same here. Windowsill. Some darker paint. Hard to get these a little bit because of the thick paint over here. And again, you can touch things up for certain. If you see anything you don't think looks pleasant to yourself, you just go in and touch it on up. At the end of the day, you have to be happy with your painting. And we'll just continue to do a little more of some touch-ups. So I'm just going to look around, basically, and see if I can see anything that I could just improve upon a little bit. Maybe this is maybe over here I can straighten this a little bit, make a shadow under there like that. That looks a little better. I think I lost track of my shadow under here. Another thing I saw that I could probably fix up a little bit was the sky along this edge of the roof over here. So I would rinse off my brush. I would start out with, again, this water here is pretty murky. So I would start off the foot with more fresh, clean water. Especially because I'm working in the sky now, the sky color. I'll rinse off this brush again. Some fresh, clean paper towel. Dry off the brush here. And I would take this and add some blue. Maybe some French ultramarine blue. Maybe a little bit of that purple color. We could get that from here maybe. And then I would just pick some of that up and see if I could. And this would be a good time now to just kind of get this. I think I just left that with too much yellow ochre there. Like it looks like it's sort of. So that's where I would just touch up something like this. And then just tie it in like that carefully. if the paint seems already tacky, I wouldn't do too much work like this. It probably would be better to wait till later when it dries, or wait till it dries like a week later to touch up the sky like this, because what happened is now I'm kind of painting into the sky, and it's kind of making some awkward marks on the actual paint strokes that I've already put on there. So some sections are still wet, but some other areas are kind of dry now, or it's already starting to dry. So those are things you just kind of have to work out as you go and see what happens. And I'll just do this here. And then the best thing to do is, let's get a little bit of that gray color there. Tie that in a little bit there. The best thing to do at this point would definitely be to remove the tape and finish the color right close to the, just like that. Cover over where the tape was so you can finish out the painting. So it's a finished board. Same thing with the bottom of the painting. It's kind of out of view right now. I'll lift it up and move it up like that so you can see. And then I'll just rinse off my brush, dry it off a little bit, and then I'll go in with some of this green mix we had before and just kind of finish out the bottom of the canvas here too as well. And some of it will be covered up by a frame, so if we decide to put a nice gold frame or silver frame on this, or wood frame, whatever you like for your framing, if it comes out good and you'd like, you could frame it. So that's why we finish up everything in the bottom of or around the whole entire border of the painting. We always want to try to finish up the canvas and make sure it's covered. And I think what I would do is, at this point, I would actually add another chimney over here. It kind of seems like we have all these chimneys and then we don't have anything over here on these roofs. So I'll come over here. Probably wouldn't be a good thing to have a chimney though by that patio. I think I'll leave it. Yeah, I think I should leave that the way it is. Maybe we could have a couple small. Maybe some vents here. And then with the vents, we can we'll use our fine detail brush again. And use some of that purple color. Actually, I would rinse off my brush, dry off my brush on a paper towel. I come over and get some blue and some red, alizarin crimson, kind of a purplish color. Then maybe gray it down with a little bit of burnt umber. So we have sort of a shadow color. And then we can do some shadows for these chimneys like this. Like that. Those already have shadows. Burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson. And we'll have a couple of shadows on these vents here. So we have a little couple vent pipes there. Putting the shadows there, give us that indication there's something there. We'll put another one up here too. It's kind of nice to see some of these details too as well. Like that. And another bit of a vent pipe here, and then some shadowing like that. And that's what's good about adding these final details. You can see some shadowing. That helps the painting. It gives like a definite feeling of light where you're seeing light and shadow. Just want to make sure we're seeing the verticals as well. Just subtle things like that, really. All right, we'll call it a day. I hope you had, again, a great time. We're always having fun here with our oil painting. We're going to try to always, work on different things. We do all kinds of subject matter here, of course. So you can always rest assured we're going to be trying something new and different as we go. And maybe a little bit of a detail here, not too much though, maybe just in a few spots, make a little bit of a darker line. That might be like a trim or something on the rooftop here. We could also do just a couple more details, I think. Since we have light bouncing off some of these areas, it's going to be good if we maybe just have a tiny bit. I would just put a little bit of light on the tops of these pipes up here. So it's just a matter of picking up the very fractional amount of paint, and we put them on the tops of the chimneys like that. Over here it kind of blends in with the sky. We're not going to see too much over here. If you need, again, to use something to stabilize your hand working with this here, I'll just put a few more dabs here like that. And then I go back in. If you start to see the white paint is losing its brightness, you just pick up some more. And we just get a few more dots there. And then if it looks like too much, not a problem. Blot it up. But that's where we really go sparingly. Same thing up here. This should be a couple highlights there. You can always rinse off the brush, dry off the brush really well to blend in something. If it looks like a little bit of the line got blurry, no problem. Go back in, get some more darker tone like that. Maybe there's a bit of light catching across here. And that would be very dark there. One more bit of darks I think we need there. Black and burnt umber and French ultramarine blue. That's going to be a dark there, and then a shadow. Like that. All right. We'll see you on the next video. Again, thanks for coming by. I hope you'll subscribe too. If you haven't subscribed, we're making, again, videos like this every week. Every other week, I should say. We get together every other weekend to paint in oils. So when you subscribe, the only thing it does is the next time you open up your YouTube channel, you'll see a probably a small notification that I've created another video. So you don't lose track, and that's all. So we all stick together and keep painting and having a lot of fun here. Okay, we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.